Washington Post art critic and Pulitzer Prize winner Philip Kennicott wrote an article stating, "America needs an epic narrative right now. Painters are working on it." Well, I'm one of those painters. And the name of my project is 8 minutes 46 seconds, The Rise of Fascism in America. It tells the story from the murder of George Floyd to the January 6th insurrection. The purpose of the painting is to remind everybody where we are in history and that it's not done yet. But this is a revolutionary work of art. This is different. Let me introduce myself. I'm Sherry Alamanda. I've been painting since I'm 12. I learned the old master oil painting technique that has lots and lots of layers and lots of glazes. When I was younger, I just wanted to be a mother and an artist in that order. And I had a lot of belief and a lot of faith, and these are my children, Ariana and Julia. I paint photorealism. And I love art and I love sharing it. So I started Seven Fine Arts, which was a gallery, a studio, and an event space built in part by the people of Hoboken. We made it beautiful, wood floors, a fireplace, and I had people all the time in here. So imagine, to my surprise, one day when this happened.
Hey, tell me when.
Okay, anytime.
All right,
we're filming, ladies.
Alakazam, Alakazoo. Well, gambling I'm familiar with too, as a matter of fact.
When was the last time
A
you
very
saw
good
this?
friend of ours.
All right.
Oh, does my brother know that you have Bokur?
Not only do I have Bokor, but I still use the medium.
But this is interesting because we have a grand display at our factories upstate New York.
So while my studio was doing well, my country was not. Trump was made president, and we swore that we would never forget, but yet hate builds up in every country, I guess. Someone said to me, "Trump's your president now, what are you going to do about it?" And I realized the artist has to do something about it. If we don't, who will? So I did what any mom would do. I handed out free tissues and hugs because I saw my community needed it. They were hurting, they were scared. But I had faith in people and I had faith in art and in my community. And so what I began doing was going out to marches. My first protest was the Women's March. I used my window display to tell the community how we felt and what we believed in, what was important to us. And then I got a step further and I started using the space moveon.org, indivisibility.org, using the space as a community meeting place to discuss what was happening in our country. In our country, things were getting bad. Children were behind cages, separated from their parents, and the First Lady really didn't care, did she? And this was our president. But I knew that there were people out there, politicians that were good people, and I was very fortunate to meet Ravi Bala. He was running for mayor of Hoboken, the town that I loved so dearly. And so when this happened, this hate crime, the night before the election, it was despicable, and I was terrified that Hoboken had fallen to hate. But Ravi won, and I was there, and I saw the win, and I was there for the inauguration, for Cory Booker to speak. And I had gotten to meet Cory because I knew Don Zimmer, our mayor, before Ravi. I decided I need to do something now. I needed to move my business. And so I closed up Seven Fine Arts, and I believed in my heart I could do something. I moved to Florida, right in the middle of red territory. I changed my voter status and I started working with the Democrats. I wanted to help Florida switch. I wanted to make some good trouble, but I also needed to do some work, so I did a bunch of art shows and more art shows. And I was very fortunate and I was very lucky because my work was well received and it sold and people were buying. And I had a really nice commission, and then I got 4 commissions. 4 commissions is a year's work at least. The Cultural Council of Palm Beach wanted me to do a solo show. This would have been the highlight of my career. This was incredible. The gallery space was so beautiful. And I really wanted to, but then COVID happened and things closed. And I wanted to do a piece about COVID. The curator said, "Yes, of course, do a piece about COVID. It's very important. This is," and then things got worse. I lost all 4 commissions in one day. And then this happened. And I wanted to do a piece about what was happening in America. So I spoke to the curator again. And I said, "I think I should do a small piece to talk about what's happening." And her attitude changed. And she told me that it was Too controversial. So I canceled the show. So what would you paint to document this atrocity? Well, there's a lot to paint. There was a lot to paint. There were riots, fires, panics, protests. Our streets looked like a war zone. Every night there was something else happening. We saw the rise of Confederate flags. We saw police and protesters. We saw children on the streets. We saw Hasidic Jews out protesting. We even saw Mennonites come out and protest against what was happening in the country while the president played golf. And the Ku Klux Klan was rising. And more people came out and protested. I thought about the artists of the past, how they had taken what was happening in their world and made it into art that would affect people and influence people and bring to light what was happening in their society. And I realized our society is very, very different. I needed to tell the truth without exaggerating because our president was lying. And so I went out, I got my oils, I gathered references upon references, and I watched the news continuously to make sure everything was documented, everything that I was putting in the painting really happened. I worked in Photoshop, I worked in all different manners. It took a year to get to the point of having the composition done. I wanted the cacophony to be experienced. I wanted people to see what it felt like. But more importantly, I felt it was urgent to show our public, here, this is something different. Don't just look at it. You're on your phones all the time. How am I going to get this crowd of people that are on their phones to understand? Well, I paint photorealistically, and I realized that's something I could use to the benefit of this painting. If you Google reverse image on your phone and take a picture of the painting, this is what happens.
It's video that's been viewed around the globe, captured by a WBFO reporter in Buffalo as curfew arrives Thursday night. The fallout has 2 Buffalo police officers suspended without pay and the governor calling for their jobs. It's 8:15 p.m. in front of Buffalo City Hall. A group of protesters on one side, police moving in on the other. You see this man, who has been identified as 75-year-old activist Martin Gugino, walk up and say something to police. He has a helmet in his hand. You then see a Buffalo police officer, who the I-team has learned is Aaron Torgalski, push the man to the ground with his hand. He can be seen bleeding from one ear. Buffalo police initially reported the incident to be a skirmish between officers and protesters and that he, quote, tripped and fell. But then video surfaced, and 2 hours later, Buffalo Commissioner Byron Lockwood suspended the 2 officers involved without pay.
He should not have been pushed. That push caused him to fall backward.
In essence, the painting becomes a revolutionary new way of looking at art, combining our technology with old world techniques. Oh, do I regret not having that big solo show at the fancy, beautiful space with the gorgeous galleries? No, I don't. The curator told me my work was too controversial and that it would ruin my career. I have faith. My career is to be a mother and to be an artist and to share my love of art with people. The Washington Post critic wants to see the painting. That to me means more than anything. We as a collective rely on each other. Communities rely on each other to build. If you are someone that believes in the power of art, reach out.
Leonard Bocour.
Mr.
This is Bocour. And he stayed with the company. Then during the Second World War, he did other things. And he retired. And at age 66, he got ants in his pants. And he and my mom had a 200-acre farm upstate New York that they were living on. And also in New Jersey and Tenafly at the time. They went weekends. And my dad said to my mom, I really want to go back and start making paint.
Isn't that amazing?
He was 66, she was 64. So they gathered their belongings, their monies, their funds, and they renovated a 20 by 40 foot cow barn and asked my younger brother, much younger than I, 16 years my junior, was he interested in helping them start Golden Artist Colors, our own line of paint. So in 1980, in the spring of 1980, Golden Artist Colors was born, and now is, I think, the premier acrylic paint company in the world, but we also sell Williamsburg now, and we also have a line of oil colors, watercolors that we just started about 2 years ago.
And here's some Williamsburg.
And Williamsburg too. I've got to have this
So that's
too.
35 years.
Yeah, and a couple of hundred workers, and in 2002, by virtue of the mindset of my brother and it would have been my dad and my mom, they're long past, the company became worker-owned. So it's an ESOP company.
Oh, that's
so
amazing.
the company
That's
of
so
200 workers is all owned by the employees. And well, I've been a clinical psychologist for a long, long time, since 1970. My practice is in New Jersey, but I may be opening up offices here in Hoboken. Maybe, if I have the strength. And in 1990, my brother said to me, how would you, and Suzanne, my first, she's passed away, but she was born in Paris, said, how would you two like to open up an office in Paris and sell throughout Europe? So just a brief anecdote regarding that, I said, sure. I told Suzanne, the French part was sort of enjoyable. Our kids, my son, John Mark and Tanya, were grown already. And we figured out our numbers of debt in Tenafly, New Jersey, and what it would cost to have an office in Paris and a car and traveling back and forth. And I told my brother Mark at the time, I said, Mark, I'd love to do it, but we'll bankrupt the company if you hire me tomorrow. So, but I did. I did it for 7, 8 days, some days, 9 days. Every 4 or 5 weeks, I traveled to Europe to represent Golden. I still had my practice because I didn't want to mess up patients, or maybe I did mess them up. And started selling Golden for about 1.5 years. My wife, and I stopped. But anyway, we're now represented in every nation of the world, Russia, China, everywhere you can possibly go, at least a shop or maybe a distributorship throughout Western Europe for sure, and obviously throughout the United States. This fellow here, Gamblin, is a very good friend of ours and a great line of oil paint. We think our Williamsburg is equivalent or better, it doesn't matter. And Bellini, does he know, did he ever see you have these products?
Yes.
Mark did.
Yes.
So one he didn't say he wants it because we have a major display that shows historical paints, Bocor, Bellini. We probably have some Bellini, but this is such. How did you collect this? What are you, like a collector?
No, this is how I learned. Okay, my first painting is right here.
And your name, by the way.
My name is Sherry Alamanda, and welcome to Seven Fine Arts.
Well,
All
you
right.
met Mark. I guess he came.
Yes, actually, a few years ago, I'm looking to take what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Now, this is my first painting, which I created at the age of 12 at an art school in Brooklyn. And this is the first painting that everybody was taught.
Yes.
And my student Lily here today has just brought in her
There's
rendition
Lily.
of her
Here.
first painting,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And that's the teaching painting that was used in this Italian style studio in Brooklyn.
Yes.
And this is all we used. We only use Bocor and Bellini paints. And so this is my first paint box going back.
Oh, so when?
I was 12 when I started painting.
So this is
49.
1970.
1970. And I still use, okay, so if you see the painting up here of the woman in the window,
Yes, I got
the
it.
oil
Sure.
part of it is all these paints. It's all Bellini paints. And
Isn't that
Bocor
something?
painting
Yes.
medium. And now on the exterior part is all new golden pumice stone
Oh,
and
yeah.
golden crackle medium
Oh, yeah.
and golden molding paste.
Yeah.
So I am a golden girl.
Well, the company, that's interesting that you use those mediums because one
These are the mediums
one
that
of
we
the
use.
strengths of the company from the very beginning. My dad was and now my brother, who's, I guess I'm 77, so he's in 60, 61 or 2. Anyway, quite familiar with major American painters, Frankenthaler, Lipnitsky, Kenny Nolan, everyone you could possibly think of who were just starting in the 30s and 40s. And as a consequence, the company has a worldwide reputation of having an intimate relationship with artists. And actually, the products you're just mentioning were typically developed because an artist would say, I've been putting sand in a medium and I wanted a rough kind of sort of granular sandy finish.
Right.
And we said, okay. And we made our first pumice gel.
And that's what these are all. I
Yeah.
call these the tactile paintings.
Exactly.
And I invite people, it says on here, please touch.
Yeah.
Because I want people to get the tactile feeling.
So persons like
Yes.
yourself said, oh, we really like the fine pumice, but could you make something a little stronger? So
Yeah.
then we made a medium pumice. And then someone came along and said, well, I like it a little more granular. Could you make
Yeah.
it a cost bump? So over the years, we made the first colored gessos, the first gels of all kinds. Gels meaning mediums, above and beyond colors, above and beyond paint with pigment. Mediums that allow you to sculpt hair. Well, we've got, I don't know, are you familiar with Open? Have you used Open?
Yes, not only am I familiar with it, I was one of the
You
artists.
gotta give
that
me a
used
card
to
so we can
test.
send you, do you have any of our watercolors at this point?
No, I would love
Well,
that.
let me have the card
Also
before I go.
Proceed. I worked with John Cosby and
Okay,
Pierre, all of those
exactly.
guys. Yeah.
Yeah, so make sure I get your car before I run across the street and try and talk to parents about pea training and caca training. So anyway, the company is, we're quite excited about it. And I just an aside about Golden Artist Colors and its relationship with painters throughout the world. We happen to have a magnificent residency that we started in 2002, where artists come from all over the world. They spend a month at a time, and it's a unique residency in that we have a magnificent barn. You just look at Golden Artist Colors. Excuse me?
What's the place called?
The place is called Sam and Adele Golden Foundation
yeah.
for the Arts, but if you go to us to goldenartistcolors.com on your web, just Golden Artist Colors, it'll come up and there'll be a link for the residency. We renovated an old 1820s cow barn into 3 magnificent studios, huge studios, and 3 beautifully set up bedroom facilities, big common kitchen with the latest Sub-Zero refrigerator, whatever, for artists. But getting back to our relationship with painters, many years ago in the 80s, a world-renowned painter named Paul Jenkins is the fellow's name, studios in Paris and Saint Paul de Vence and in New York. He sent us a sample of a green sort of like a Naples green. Anyway, he said, "Could you make me a gallon of this? I'm using it for my paintings." He used fluid acrylics. He made huge, big canvases. Canvases that could be 5 feet by 8 feet, and he just poured fluids on the canvases. Anyway, so we made this green, and after the green was made, my brother said to him, "Paul, this green is so lovely. We don't have a landscapey green quite like this. We have other greens, but something that landscapers would like." So we said to him, "We'd like to make this paint for our regular line of colors." This is an example of how we've incorporated artists' needs in. And Paul said, "Great, but for 1 year, don't make it public." I mean, it's his own affectation. My brother said, "Fine." And then my brother said to him, "Would it be okay if we called it Jenkins Green?" Now, just as an aside, we obviously don't have Martha Washington red and Stallone's purple. It's the only color that has a name of someone on it. What happened when I would go overseas, and salespeople have done it since then, to give substance to our relationship with painters, when they look at the color chart and they say, "Oh, this Jenkins Green, how did that come about?" So it was a way of identifying how we've spun off any number of products for artists because of their suggestion. So Jenkins Green is one of our, this is a big seller, big selling green color.
That's a great story.
It's a great story of the company. Obviously, it was family owned until it became a workers owned company. And we have about 200 persons who work there. It's on about 180 acres of farmland. It's just all that's around. Oh, you have been there?
Yes,
You've
I
been to
have.
the factory?
Years ago, about 10 years ago,
Yeah.
my goal has been to take what I'm doing, and on this wall over here, if you see the portrait on top, she's 10.
Her.
Yes. the
Right.
long
Oh,
portrait,
yeah, I
she's
see it,
10.
yeah.
So my goal has been, for the last 10 years, to try to take what I'm doing here and get this into a television show.
Yes.
That we could get out into, because there's nothing about art on TV. After
No,
Bob Ross,
no, Bob Ross
there's
left,
nothing.
no,
And
there
I'm-
isn't anything.
Yeah, and I'm having this wonderful experience with these students, and now we have this great space.
Yeah, a lovely
So
space.
I came to speak to Mark about a program, and I've got the pitch done, I've got everything done,
Yes.
and we were talking to Golden about potentially sponsoring it
Yes.
to help us to get this
So
going.
it went to a conversation
It
and
went to
sort
a
of.
conversation, and then it ended up going down the tubes.
Yeah.
I was a single parent,
Right.
took a day job, and then 3 years ago after the hurricane, was married that weekend. The
Right.
company I worked for washed away. I was vice president.
Right.
And my husband said to me, "Why don't you go back to doing what you love?"
Right.
And so since then, I've had my work exhibited. One of my first pieces was just in a museum.
Yes.
And that's as you play there.
Right.
So to go from my first painting at 12 to bringing it full circle to now being in a museum, and I've been using
Right.
golden paints along the way. And this is all my work up here.
Yeah.
And now to have a student work
Mhm.
here, where this is her second painting, Patrice. She's never painted
This one here.
before. Yes.
Yes.
She's never painted
It's lovely.
before. And the woman over here has drawn before, but really never painted. And she's getting ready to do her first show at the Art Expo.
Well, you ought to give serious, I don't know if you're serious thought to at least making application to the residency.
I think my students would shoot me if I built this space and then left for a month.
Well, they're
That
month
might
long,
be
but what I wanted to say, there are 2 residencies in the world. There are residencies all over the world. People go away and go to a place on the coast, on Cape Cod or Paris, France, and paint and meet other painters. But our residency is truly a schooling, because the factory of Golden Artist Colors, where the products are made, is about 150 yards from the residency. So when residents come, their first 4, 5, 6 days, they're literally at the factory working with the chemists who make paint.
That's great.
That's great.
Seeing how paint is made and able to then, they typically come with a project that of some idea of a color or a medium or a finish that they've always wanted, and we make it.
I have it.
Okay.
I know what I want.
No,
I know what I
we
want.
make it. So the idea of persons who apply, we ask them very specifically, if you come to the Golden Artist Residency, one of the, not demands, but requirements is, you're just not here to paint, but you're here to possibly experiment and come up with
That's
products,
amazing.
not that we would incorporate, but that you want. So persons sometimes are interested in a different finish, a different varnish, a different drying time, a different color, a different kind of gel that they can do X, Y, Z with, or collages with a different kind of paint, whatever. And so Golden Artist Colors Residency is truly an educational experience. You just don't stay in your studio and paint. The only other company in the world that has something, but it's for sculptors, is the company that's world famous for toilets and bathtubs, Kohler. The Kohler company out in the Midwest has a huge, it's mile-long factory and huge urns, and their sculptors come to learn how to make porcelain, how to make the materials that sculptors might want to use. So Kohler is the one company in the world that has an artist residency, but for sculptors, and Golden Artist Colors has a residency for oil painters, acrylic painters. Now we have 2 persons there, or they just finished, who were basically photographers, but use their photography, the photographs, and then refinish them. They do stuff, okay?
Yeah.
That's it. I said they do stuff, and I'm not making jest of what they do, is because one of the wondrous things, and you're one of the persons, and you all too, every time a new resident comes, I've said it to them. I have a farm about 2 miles away from the factory that I've had since the 70s. I usually have the artists, the 3 of them, 3 at a time, come to my house for a dinner. And I'm always commenting to them that I thought I saw the last stuff, the last different, the last, it's not that things aren't, I mean, all these things obviously have a connection. It isn't just the colors or forms or whether it's abstract or realistic or semi, is that artists are constantly generating something. I wish I didn't see that. It's the how come of it, I marvel at. Marvel. We're all fortunate that artists exist, because without them our world would be absolutely flat and dull. And the greatest part is, and you're a good example of it, artists don't have any choice.
Yes.
Artists don't become plumbers. They don't have to sell a painting ever. They're like, they've had it.
Yeah.
They don't have to sell, and they just paint. And when they finish painting that, they put it aside. It's the process for artists that's the main piece. The end result you like. And soon enough, it's aside. I've gone to get studios of artists that are looking either to get something or, not given painted. And I'll see a rack. I'll be going through the rack, and the guy or the woman would say, "Why are you going through that? This is what I'm doing." I said, "That's okay." But those paintings they're finished with. And the next piece is where their energy goes. The next creativity. The process of making a painting.
Yes.
It's like the process of finishing a sweater. The process of cooking a pasta sauce.
Process of writing
In
a
the
book.
end, you enjoy the sauce. It's the making of the sauce where the real energy goes. It's the same way with teaching. It's the same way with what I do in my office. Yeah, I don't know if I cured anyone in 45 years, but it's the relationship and what's going on, when you're seeing someone, that really is the exciting that keeps you going.